Hello, my friends. This is Anna Crichton, your resident psychologist, broadcasting from Churros Head in Australia. I'm giggling here because this is my second attempt. The first one was really good, except for I made the huge mistake of not turning a couple of features on. And I thought I knew as much as I could about Hangout on Air. It just shows you we should never get too arrogant. Back to the topic. Yesterday, I posed a question at the end of my mini webinar. How do you look after your biggest financial asset, which is your brain? How do you look after it? Now, before I get to the tips, I actually wanted to spend a little bit more time trying to convince you that your brain is your biggest financial asset, because there's some dispute here that maybe it is not. Well, it's like this. It's not your BMW and it's not your house. That's your biggest financial asset, but it's your brain. Now, let me take you through a little exercise here just to convince you of the facts as they are. This will require pen and paper. Now, if you don't have it now, don't panic. Do this exercise afterwards because it's really, really worth it. Simple as it is, it's a huge eye-opener. And this is what you do. Write your age. These are my dogs awaiting their daddy. So please excuse the racket that's going to ensue. Write down your age. Whatever age it is, just write it down. Then the next point is write how many years have you been employed, either self-employed or employed by someone else. It really doesn't matter. I will use an example of someone who is 25 years of age and has worked for about 5 years, more or less. The next point is, what was your average per year? Again, you don't have to be terribly accurate, and you don't have to come up with an argument that the value of dollar is not what it used to be. Just work on today's averages. Now, I'm going to assign a pretty generous average to our 25-year-old and say he or she has earned, on the average, $50,000 a year gross. $50,000 a year in 5 years is $250,000. Now, these stats could be a little exaggerated, but the point is that person has roped in quite a substantial amount of money. How much longer are you planning to work? Let's assume that you really love your job, it provides a great deal of meaning, and that you want to work for as long as you can, say up to 65. In the case of our fellow or young lady, that's another 40 years. And again, let's stick to the average of 50,000 a year. Well, I did the calculations because there were lots and lots of zeros, and it amounts to 2 million. That person's wonderful brain is capable of earning this amount of money, at least, at the very least. Isn't that impressive? Isn't that impressive? Do your own calculations. This is a huge eye-opener, and I do it with my clients, especially the ones who undervalue themselves, who never think about how to look after their brain, who take things for granted, who lack confidence. It is a real eye-opener. Your brain is wonderful, it's creative, it's intelligent, but it's also susceptible to stress, to depression, and to anxiety, to various challenges of our everyday life. How do we look after our brain? How do we make those challenges work for us, not against us? I'm not going to give you any tips today. I just wanted you to know that before we actually start managing our brain, we have to know how it works, how it's developed, and what happens to it when we do confront challenges, bigger and smaller challenges. What happens to our physiological brain? It is really very, very simple and very, very interesting. And knowing how our brains work under any circumstances is going to be halfway to knowing how to manage, how to nurture our fantastic assets. Now, before we part for today, let me tell you one more thing. You don't have one brain. No one does. We have 3 brains in one. Now, this is one of the newest discoveries of neuroscience. We all have 3 brains, and they don't always work well together. We can help them along. And how? I'll share that with you. I'll share everything I know, everything that has worked for me and for my clients very soon. Thank you.